What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Fish at the Moment. Today I'm out here on a small lake in Arkansas, and I want to test out a new budget jig that I just picked up. It's a $4 swim jig. I think it's called the Weekender series from Dirty Jigs. And I want to show you how I fish it around some shallow water willow and talk about my 3 rules for swim jig fishing. It's a bait I've thrown a ton over my lifetime. Before we get started though, I want to show you how I actually trim up this jig out of the package. This is just brand new out of the package. What I like to do is trim that skirt so that it's about a 1/4 inch from the bottom bend of the hook. So I just take some scissors and trim that. And I also like to trim the weed guard just a little bit out the front. And what I'll do is just basically take the front corner of that weed guard off with my scissors. So you kind of have a little bit of an angle or an incline to that. And also take a little bit off the front. You don't need too much weed guard on a swim jig. You don't want to have too much that kind of gets in the way. So hopefully that makes sense. Just trim that up, take the corner off a little bit. And I'm just gonna pair that today. It's a little bit cleaner water on this lake than I was expecting. So I always go with a black and blue swim jig all the time regardless, and then I change up my trailer color. So for the trailer color, I'm just using a green pumpkin Yamamoto Yamacraw. I really like this Yamacraw on a swim jig right now. It keeps it a little bit higher in the water column than a regular Rage Craw. It has a little bit more kicking action, and in the fall right now, these fish should be pretty aggressive. We had the first few cool nights of the year, so let's get up here and see if we can start catching some fish, because I am pumped to get started. Okay, let's get started here, guys. I got this jig on some 20-pound fluorocarbon. I like to throw my swim jigs on fluorocarbon. I find with braid, I'll bend the hooks out on these swim jigs, even if it's like a really heavy-duty hook. So I always go with 20-pound fluoro. I have a 7'4" heavy power Warman jig rod in the Nolly Lithium Pro lineup, and then just a Max Pro 7-to-1 gear ratio reel. I do like a 7-to-1 gear ratio reel with this swim jig just to keep that bait up higher in the water column and reel up my slack if a fish bites me and starts swimming really fast to the boat. I just like a little bit faster reel. I'm just fishing some shallow water willow this morning. Nothing crazy from a kind of cover standpoint. The lake doesn't look super high. It probably would be better if the water was a little bit higher right now, but that's not too big of a deal. I'm sure that there's still probably some fish using this grass. We may just have to find some deeper edges and things like that. So we're gonna just fish through here, and I'm just gonna kind of do this as like a uncut style video to show you how I would fish this grass. Hopefully we can catch a couple fish. I don't know if there's gonna be a bunch of fish up in this grass, but it looks so good when I got to the boat ramp, and I'm like, man, there's got to be something going on up here. So we'll just kind of keep fishing through here and see. The couple of things with a swim jig that I find pretty interesting is that, one, it's a great tool for covering water around shallow vegetation, whether you have this water willow like we have here in Arkansas, or it's more like kind of hydrilla, thicker grass that's sticking out in the middle of the lake. It's just a great tool for that. And whenever I'm fishing a jig, the first thing I'm always looking for, especially a swim jig, is hard edges. Right in front of me here, you have a really nice hard edge to this water willow. And if you can find a point in the grass or a pocket, a little hole in the grass, something like that, your chances of catching fish in a swim jig go up dramatically, especially first thing in the morning. So that's kind of rule number 1, look for your hard edges. Now, a hard edge can vary again, depending on the lake you're on. So if you're on a lake like this that has this water willow, I'll focus on that hard edge, but I'm not going to just always fish in that edge. I'll also kind of work my jig up into the grass a little bit. I'm not always just going to cast right on the edge, but overall you want to keep your jig on the outside edge of that grass 95% of the time, I would say. And you want to parallel the grass. So if we take a look at my boat position here, you'll notice that I'm setting up so that I'm casting that bait parallel to the grass. I'm not casting directly into the grass. And I'm doing that for 2 reasons. One, it keeps my bait in the strike zone a lot longer because that bait is going to be going down that edge. And also I can make a lot longer cast and stay further away from these fish. Because we are in slightly cleaner water right now, the further away I can stay from these fish when I'm making my casts, the less likely I am to spook the fish. So that's kind of a double benefit right there. Now, I don't know if these fish are going to be way up in this grass or not. Again, the water is kind of clean on this lake, so this might not be the perfect time. Maybe as we get later in the fall or maybe earlier this summer, this was better when there was more rain and things like that. Now, it's not 100% necessary that you have that really dirty water to catch fish in water willow like this. I've caught them in really clean water actually this time of year, and it really depends on the conditions. Right now we have this low light because the sun hasn't risen that high yet. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. I probably could have got out here a little bit earlier to get this bite going even better, but that's no problem. We just gotta fish the conditions. I just want to kind of keep them honest up here shallow, to be honest, because it looks so good up here. If I don't get bit though, we are going to go offshore later today, and that might be the play. But I like to keep them honest, especially this time of year in the fall, around the shallow water willow, things like that, because it can be a really fun bite, and you don't want to miss an easy bite like this in the fall either. Something that just, you know, works out where you can just go down the bank and catch fish. So again, rule number one of fishing a swim jig is to find the edges of the grass. If you are in a lake that has a lot of milfoil, hydrilla, coontail, you can also look for holes in the grass. If there's a hole in the grass, you also have a hard edge, obviously, because there's a hole in it. And those can be very, very effective, especially if you have a really long stretch of grass. Finding the holes in the grass can really make a big difference at times to your success. So that's rule number one. Now, rule number two of fishing a swim jig is that you don't want to work the swim jig through the grass too fast. You want it coming through the grass for sure, but you actually want to make that bait almost suspend in the grass and stay in that grass as long as possible. The way that I do this is basically doing the Alabama shake. That's my favorite retrieve. Even though we're here in Arkansas, the Alabama shake is my favorite retrieve around this water willow. You can see what I'm doing is I'm shaking that rod and keeping my rod tip high. The reason I'm doing that is because I want to make that bait basically just suspend in the top of that grass and get caught up in that grass so that it's not going all the way down to the bottom, but it's also just under the surface and not coming all the way out of the water. I see some guys, they like to fish a swim jig where they literally just pitch it in the grass, they'll let it sink down the bottom, they'll hop it a couple times, and that's it. And that can actually work well if you're in really sunny conditions. There's a bunch of fish setting up in the grass like in May and maybe June, April, stuff like that. Maybe they're post-spawn or spawning, and you can just kind of work that jig really, really slow through that grass. And there are times, especially like in May, where I'll work that jig, I'll let it fall on the edge of that grass, kill it there, and then keep working it. And that's a really good retrieve when the fish are post-spawn, fry garters, stuff like that, where you work it to the edge of the grass, kill it, and then let it fall on the edge. But in the fall like this, these fish are just kind of roaming and chasing on shad. So I'm not as concerned about stopping that bait on the edge. I kind of just want to cover water with this bait. And you can see I've already covered quite a bit of water this morning as we've been talking. But you also don't want to just cast that bait in there and just straight retrieve it and just work it like over the surface of the water like you would maybe a buzz bait or like a horny toad or something like that. This isn't just a cast it out and retrieve it straight in bait, especially around this water willow. I'm just kind of showing that retriever. I'm just casting it and reeling it in. That bait doesn't really get in and around that grass very well with that. It can work if you are in really thick hydrilla or milfoil, stuff like that, where you can just straight retrieve it. And I know that's kind of a thing in Wisconsin where I grew up, where guys would put a swim bait trailer on the back of their swim jigs and they would just reel that bait over the grass. But when you're fishing water willow and stuff like this, you really want that bait to get hung up in that grass almost on purpose and then shake free. So you're shaking it, shaking it, shaking it, getting it through that grass and kind of hanging it up in the top of that grass. And that's kind of the key. And that's why I'm throwing a 3/8 ounce jig right now. This is a 3/8 ounce swim jig. This is my favorite size. I always throw a 3/8 ounce. And this Yamacraw has really big flappers on it, so it also holds that bait higher up in the water. I also find that that Yamacraw material is a little more buoyant than like a Rage Craw, which is my other kind of go-to trailer. And if I really want to get that bait deeper down in the grass, I will go to a Rage Craw because it has some smaller pincers on it, and it also has some kind of more salty material, and that saltier material a lot of times will keep that bait down deeper. I normally don't actually go to a heavier swim jig. I always use a 3/8 ounce swim jig, and I will just adjust my trailer between that Yamacraw and that Rage Craw. I have both of them in the boat for this specific purpose, and it just depends on what the fish want on that given day. Now, the one thing about a swim jig too is that you have to cover quite a bit of water to make it work at times, where you aren't just going to get bit on every single little stretch like this, you have to go for a long ways. And there are certain times when the swim jig bite is way better than other times where you can just literally catch 20, 30 fish a day. But usually when I think about a swim jig bite, I'm thinking that it's gonna be a maybe 10 bite a day deal where I'm just getting the quality bites. I'm not necessarily going and catching a pile of fish. Again, there are days when you catch a pile of fish, but especially in the fall like this, usually it's 5 to 8 bites a day swimming a jig in this water willow. And if I catch like 1 or 2 fish doing it this morning, I'll be happy. And it's just such a fun bite anyways that I'm not super worried about it. But what I want to do in general is just cover as much water as physically possible and put my bait in the strike zone as long as possible, hoping that there are at least a couple active fish up here feeding. Now, one thing I have noticed is there's a lot of bait in the grass right now, or at least some bait. I'm seeing it kicking around, which is a really good sign that there might be a bass up here. I don't know where these fish are going to be relative to, like, are they on these straighter stretches? Are they around the deeper grass? Are they around the shallower grass? And you're not going to know that until you basically fish through all of it. So you have to just put the trolling motor down and go. And I have my trolling motor right now on like 4 out of 10. And that's a good pace where I'm not outpacing my swim jig, but I'm also not going too slow. If I was fishing something like a spinnerbait or a chatterbait, I'd actually go a little bit faster with the trolling motor. But because I need to kind of work that bait semi-slow in the edge of that grass, hopping it and doing that, I need to slow down the trolling motor a little bit. But you don't want to slow it down too much. You just want to keep it in a steady pace, steady flow, and that way I can work that grass kind of efficiently. I don't know if this is going to be the best pattern today because I haven't gotten bit yet. That doesn't mean that they're not doing this, though. It's just a matter of this grass is further. Oh gosh, he was way up there in that grass. Oh wow, okay, so I need to be further back up in there. That's a good one too. Great fish. Oh my gosh, look at that thing. What a stud on the swim jig. That's why you throw a swim jig in the fall, guys. Yes. Oh, that was such a cool bite. Woo! Oh man, that's what I'm talking about, guys. Beautiful fish on that swim jig right there. You cannot beat that. That is so awesome. What a great bite. Getting back down in the lake. Whew, shaking. Let's get another trailer out there. We got to keep fishing. Oh my gosh. I had a feeling this morning that we were going to catch something on a swim jig, and that was a lean fish. He had not really probably eaten that well, but gosh, I'm shaking. Oh, I love catching on a swim jig. That's so freaking fun. Okay, got that Yamacraw. I do cut off the top little section of the Yamacraw. I'm literally shaking. I haven't been shaking in a long time. Something about just a swim jig bite, like I just was so amped up this morning to just go catch a fish. I don't know why. I just had a good feeling about today. Oh, let's get back over there. I want to make another cast in that same area. That swim jig held up really well. I stuck him really good. The hook didn't bend out. That's the one thing I was a little bit concerned about with this jig, just because it is at a $4 price point. I was worried it wasn't gonna have a good hook, but that fish got stuck really well. This is like a no frills swim jig. It just has a single strand skirt. It's not like a double thick skirt, which is what I actually like in a swim jig. It doesn't have any fancy eyes or anything. I don't need that in a swim jig either. Got a good weed guard. $4. I mean, you can't really beat that. I'll link it down in the description. It's that Weekender swim jig. If you just need some swim jigs just to pick up, I don't know why you would need anything else other than this jig, to be honest. Like, it's exactly what you need. The only thing is if you need like a really heavy hook swim jig where you want to be throwing braid, I guess you could go with a little bit stouter hook. I would say this hook is not a braid hook by any means, so you would definitely want a stouter hook if you're going to be fishing braid. But other than that, I mean, for what I'm doing right here, absolutely perfect. Again, $4. You guys know I like my cheap reels. I don't mind the cheap jig because it's at the end of the day, I don't feel like a jig is that fancy. Like maybe with a crankbait or a swim bait or something like that, you can justify the more expensive price point because you have the paint and you have the body and there's quality control and all that stuff. But like a jig, it's a jig. You know what I mean? So I kind of just want a simple, basic bait. But anyways, that fish was way up in there. I don't know, one thing I kind of can tell from that is that that fish was on a spot where the grass was definitely further off the bank and there was more grass in there, and it's kind of sticking further off the bank. So I might need to find some stretches, more stretches like this, if I'm going to keep catching them, where they're not on the, basically, they're really tight stretches that are right against the bank, potentially. Maybe they're more up in, like, way up in these fields, or like, I guess, bigger stretches of grass where there's more grass for them to get in. But we'll keep fishing around. We don't want to make that assumption quite yet. But gosh, that was such a fun bite. That was so cool. Okay, let's get back on topic here. Let me know down in the comments if you're liking this style of video where I just kind of, I feel like I'm just kind of ranting, but I do want to do these like 3 rules style videos, and I've done them before on like the Bass Fishing Declassified YouTube channel that I also run, and it's just been hard to keep up with that and Fish the Moment and Core Tackle and everything else I have going on. So I want to bring those 3 rules videos over here to Fish the Moment, but I also like to do fishing videos here on Fish the Moment. I don't like to just kind of sit in the office. I feel like that's kind of, I don't know, everyone just kind of sits and just talks to the camera. So I want to actually do it fishing. So let me know if you guys like this format where I'm here talking and fishing and sharing my 3 rules, because I'm just sitting and talking anyways when I do those 3 rules videos, so I might as well also be fishing. Fish just moved over here. I don't know what that was. Fish moved in this grass. You can pay attention to fish moving in the grass a lot of times, and you can see the strands of the grass move, and that will let you know if there's likely a fish in the area. I didn't see that with that last fish. Kind of just sharked it though. I mean, that was a good fish too, my goodness. But let's kind of get to my 3rd rule of swim jig fishing. And the 3rd rule is that you need to cover a ton of water. I actually already talked about it. I kind of spoiled this one, but you need to cover a ton of water with a swim jig. This isn't a bait for me where you are dissecting cover. If you want to dissect cover, you really need to go with like a flipping jig. You could go with a Texas rig, stuff like that. But this is a cover water type bait. You want to obviously keep your bait in the strike zone, that outside edge like I talked about. You want to shake your rod and keep that bait higher up in that strike zone. Fish just moved right here. Sorry. I might get a little bit distracted with some of this stuff because I'm seeing fish move. I don't know if these are like big gizzards that are kicking around in this grass too, because I've seen some bigger shad or just bigger something in this grass. But anyways, you do want to keep the other rules in mind, but you want to cover as much water as you can. And a swim jig for me is not a bait I pick up when there's a very limited amount of cover in the water. The reason I picked it up this morning is because there's a lot of cover in the water, and it's designed to be a bait to cover water where you can move and basically make a lot of casts in the day. You're not doing yourself any favors if you're just kind of slowly working this bait. There's other baits that are actually better for that application, in my opinion. Now you can just catch fish just skipping this jig around like overhanging trees and a bunch of other stuff. I'm actually going to kick the trolling motor up here a little bit faster because we're kind of getting to a stretch. You can see right here, this stretch, there's barely any cover in the water. I'll make a couple casts just around, but because there's so little cover, I'm not super concerned about fishing this stretch. I want to get to a stretch where there's more grass in the water. I'm kind of running low. Might need to turn back around the other way too. Kind of running low on this stretch in the sense that like the shade is only covering a little bit more of this. Just made like 3 casts in a row that were terrible. But we have a few more feet of good, or probably about 150 more yards of this grass, which is good. That's what we really want. You want to be able to just go, go, go with this deal. And I've covered quite a bit of water already. Hopefully this is helping you see too that you don't need to be fishing slow and methodically, and you want to parallel that grass. That's the key. And again, I'm fishing with this deal. If I was going to come out here and I was fishing like a derby, or I was doing like a catch 15 or whatever, I would expect to get 5 bites a day doing this, 8 bites a day. Like, I'm not going to get all these bites, but the ones you're going to get are really good. And if you fish places like the Arkansas River, Lake Dardanelle, any lake that has this water wheel over in Oklahoma, if you're fishing grassy lakes even that just have kind of bank grass style stuff, expect to get 5 to 8 bites a day doing this. You're going to get a bite every 30, 45 minutes maybe. It might be a little bit better first thing in the morning where you're gonna get a few more bites kind of for that first hour of the day, first 2-3 hours of the day, but especially as that day progresses and you get more into the afternoon, you're gonna have fewer and fewer bites. Now, you can still catch these same fish. There's a bunch of shad just kicked out of that grass. You can still catch these same fish in the middle of the day if you have dirtier water around this grass. And you can also catch them around shade pockets in the middle of the day if you have this cleaner water. So I wouldn't like right off the grass after that morning bite. You can do it all day. It's just, again, dirtier water, like I'm talking like a foot of visibility or less, where you can't see the bottom around the grass. That's really good still with sun. But if you don't have the sun, or sorry, if you don't have that dirty water, you need to basically be finding stretches of shaded grass, or grass that has a little bit of cloud cover on it, or just something where it's not harsh sun in that clean water. Hopefully that makes sense. I feel like my words aren't always coming out perfect when I do these rambling videos, because I'm trying to fish and talk and do it all. Run the trolling motor. My brain's going on like overdrive right now, but hopefully this is making sense. So right now I can see the base of this grass here too. That's how clean the water is. Like I'm seeing all the way down the bottom here. So this is pretty clean water. This is not a dirty lake right now. I'm actually thinking I'll be able to catch them offshore really well today too. I'm excited about that, to be honest, because I plan on doing that a little bit this afternoon too. But I mean, honestly, this is way more fun right now, so I'm glad I started my day doing this. This is literally spur of the moment. I bought this jig and I was like, okay, I want to try this $4 jig, and I also just want to have a excuse to go fish a jig up shallow in the grass, because this is too fun. Way too fun. This looks like a good stretch right here too. We have a lot of grass sticking out. I'm just seeing some shad kicking through here. You could throw a frog through this stuff too if the water was a little bit higher. The only issue you kind of run into with a frog in this stuff is that it's going to be over the top of that grass so much that it's going to be hard to get that frog always right where you want it. Just saw a shad or something kick right here. He swam right there. Where are you going, fish? Eat my jig. If you're a bass, eat it. There's got to be other fish that are just swimming around this grass. I don't know what they are, because I'm seeing a lot of movement in the grass, and I've not seen, when I throw at that movement, I've not had a single fish actually come bite. So I don't know what else is in this grass. I don't know if it's gizzards, or I don't know. It could be carp or gar for all I know, but I haven't seen him yet. Anyways, so again, 3 rules. 3 rules so far, or the 3 rules I talked about. There are only 3 rules that I'm going to talk about. It's, you want to parallel that grass. That boat position is critical. Keep your bait in that strike zone as best you can. The last fish was up in that grass, so I kind of defeated my first rule slightly, a little bit, but oh gosh, bluegill. Okay, scared me. One just smacked it right there. I did kind of break my first rule just because I caught that one fish way up in there. So I guess it's not always a perfect rule, but most of the time those fish are going to be on that outer edge, I would say. Like 95% of the time. There are times when they're back up in there, I guess like right now. That could have just been a random fish too, like random fluky deal. Don't really know. But anyways, I would always recommend trying to parallel that grass, even if you're casting up into it, just to maintain some distance from the fish. Like right now I'm kind of having to cast more directly at the grass because it's so short to the bank. I don't want to get my boat too close on top of that grass. But anyways, hopefully that's making sense. And then the second rule is you want to make that bait kind of suspend and float in that grass by doing the Alabama shake. It's my favorite retrieve. Keep that bait just kind of floating in the top of that grass. Use a trailer and a 3/8 ounce jig that'll kind of keep that bait higher up in that grass. Almost like a subsurface topwater. If you want to think about like a buzz bait, you're basically fishing like a buzz bait that's just like a little bit under the surface, and you're kind of just floating that bait up there. If it gets hung up in that grass, that's sometimes pretty good too, and those fish will come and pick it up off the grass. Then number 3 is you just want to cover water. You got to cover a pile of water with this deal. And I guess the 4th rule. It's not really a rule, but it's more like if you have this clean water, find shade and kind of overcast conditions, low light conditions, and then if you have the sun, you need to find some dirtier water. So those are my rules. I'm gonna keep rolling down the stretch, just kind of keep talking to you guys while I fish through this. And then once I kind of get to the end of the stretch, I'm probably just gonna stop and start going offshore for a little bit, just because I'm very curious about going offshore right now too, because I'm seeing bait kick all over the place out here. I'm just thinking I might be able to crack them offshore too. I don't think that there's a ton of fish up in the shallow grass, as we mentioned, like 5 fish a day. And while that is super fun, and I want to kind of keep doing this, I also want to do other stuff. So hopefully it's just like with that one fish catch is good for you guys. You kind of get the idea, talked about my 3 rules. The reason I'm doing videos like this too is that they take a lot less time on my side to produce, and I want to be able to get out as much content as I can to you guys. And like those Catch 15 videos, I just don't always have a chance to get out and prep and get the camera gear and do the 10 hours of editing on those videos, where these videos take a lot less time. I don't know if they're as impactful, as informative for you guys. I know that kind of those are more the strategy style videos where I'm actually talking about how I would strategize a day. This is definitely more like tactical, where I'm showing you in the moment how I'm thinking about stuff, which I feel like both are valuable in the sense that you need both. You can't just have the high level strategy without the small nuances. Obviously, you need to have like the execution up here, just kind of doing what I'm doing now. This next stretch looks really freaking good. But also, I don't know if this content is what you guys like, so let me know down in the comments. I know that I'll probably get comments that are like, I love this, and you'll be like, if everyone says they love both, I mean, I guess I can just make both. That's not a problem by any means. And it gives me a way to kind of share some techniques that maybe I wouldn't necessarily always do in like my Catch 15s. I mean, obviously this is a good strategy to do for a Catch 15. But a lot of times with those, I do like to fish offshore because I feel like I give myself a lot better chance of catching 15 pounds consistently. This is definitely more of like a Hail Mary type approach, I would say, in the sense that like I have to, oh gosh, there was one right in the same stretch in the middle of that grass. Okay, there's fish in here. That was just a little guy. That was not a good fish or a big fish, but come on. Will he come back and get it? There's fish swimming all in and around here. I'm gonna really fish this next little 2 pockets kind of thoroughly, because there's definitely some fish back up in these flatter stretches. I mean, honestly, now that I have this kind of figured out, what I'll probably do around this lake is try to find all the flat stretches I could, and cover water through these flatter stretches, because obviously I've had 2 bites now in this type of grass where it's further off the bank. It's not as tight against the bank. So that's really good sign from a patterning standpoint. One just slapped out right there. I don't know if that was a bluegill, what that was. He didn't eat it like he wanted it, whatever it was. I'm just gonna fish just a little more thoroughly here, slow down, just because it looks so good right through here. And it's the last kind of stretch where the grass sticks way off the bank in this whole section. So this is probably, if I'm going to catch one, the one just swam right there. What is in the world? Right where I just made a cast, a fish just, or something just shook the grass there. Again, it could be bluegill for all I know, but there are fish swimming up in and around here. Huh, interesting. I feel like there's probably, I mean, I kind of have fished like 2/3 of this lake where all the shade is, unfortunately. So there may just not be that many spots right now that are setting up for this deal. There might just be, this might be like, you know, a very limited pattern, which is normal. When you get on the lake, a lot of times you can't just do one thing all day. I'm kind of running, actually I'm almost like completely out of water that fits this pattern, unfortunately, which really sucks, to be honest, because I thought this would be good. I honestly was hoping I could catch some fish on these flatter or these steeper sections too, where that grass is not as far off the bank, but that definitely isn't the case. Just looking around to see if there's anything else that I'm missing. I'm not feeling this next stretch up here, this really steep stretch. I want a flatter stretch of grass. What I might do is I might just fish this like right here really fast, just like a cast or two more, and then I might try to find one more stretch. If I can find one more stretch of flatter grass, just to see if we can catch one. If I can't find it though, then I'll probably just end the video. But let me, yeah, there's nothing left here. Let me at least go try to look around. I'm gonna run back down the lake. There might be one more stretch I can find. Okay, so I came back over here actually exactly where we started the video. I started fishing like down that bank over there, and I'm just gonna go the opposite direction. There's a really nice flat stretch of grass here, right where we started. It still has some shade on it, so this could be the deal. I don't know how much longer we have with the light. We probably only have maybe another 25 minutes of good light, so we shall see if we can get another one. I'm gonna focus a little bit further up in this grass right now because that's where we got our last couple bites. I will take a couple casts down the south side edge still, but I'm gonna kind of skip over the really skinny sections. There's like 3 sections of steeper grass that I'm kind of curious about, or sorry, flatter grass. I'm gonna skip over the steep sections. I'm gonna focus on these flat sections of grass, and that's kind of my goal at the moment. But again, I'm not expecting to get a ton of bites doing this. I mean, if I get a bite per hour, I'm like super happy on this deal. And it's just covering a ton of water, keeping them honest, doing all the stuff we talked about. Don't have too much more to add. I feel like I've been talking for so long, I don't have that much more to add to the video. I guess I'll leave my final comments on this jig. Feel good about the jig. Obviously, I haven't really stress tested it. I've caught 1 fish on it, so it might break apart after like 10 fish catches or something. I don't really know. The fact that it held up really well though to a strong hook set on a bait caster, 20-pound line with a really quality fish, I feel like that's good enough for me. I would feel perfectly fine using this as a primary option of a jig for myself, at least. So happy about that. I guess I feel like I talked about the trailer color a little bit, but I like to use this green pumpkin trailer in this cleaner water with the black and blue jig. Because I'm fishing in this low light area where there's like a lot of shade and stuff, I'm not worried about using a black and blue versus like a green pumpkin jig. I always just use a black and blue, honestly, even in clean water. I just changed the trailer. The skirt is so thin on these swim jigs, most of them at least, that it doesn't really make that big of a difference in my opinion if you're using a green pumpkin jig or a black and blue jig from a skirt standpoint. So I just always buy just black and blue. Saves me some money. I don't need to have 35 different colors in my boat and helps with storage. But that's just me. I'm fine with just a standard black and blue. You know, black and blue is always true. Holds true for me. And just change my trailer color. Not sure about this grass right here. It's pretty, like, sticks out pretty good. It just seems like it's really shallow. What was that? That wasn't a fish. That was just me being paranoid. There we go. Get back over there. I don't know what that was. So we got like one little couple corner here. Arkansas River was where I kind of learned how to fish a swim jig. I love fishing a swim jig on the Arkansas River. It was kind of my deal that I would do as like my default tactic. Whenever I didn't know what else to do, I would just honestly find stretches of water willow and go throw a swim jig. And I would say that it was my #1 technique for years because it worked so well for quality fish. I feel like for some reason, I didn't feel like I had that much competition of guys doing it, even though it was a very popular technique at the time, and it still is. But I just always had a lot of success with it. So it was kind of my go-to thing. when I couldn't find fish offshore. So like if I couldn't find fish offshore or on a sandbar or something where I would find something off the wall, you guys know me, I like to fish offshore, but I would practice offshore. That's how I would fish when I did a lot of tournaments and when I was kind of like a local on Dardanelle. I would fish offshore during practice, spend all my time doing that. And then if I couldn't catch him, oh my gosh, that fish shot all the way off the bank to try to eat my bait. I pulled it away from him. Oh my gosh, come back and get it, fish. That was wild. That fish was so aggressive. No way. He was right here. How did he not get it? I shouldn't have set the hook. I assumed he came so hot for it. He was up on the bank, like in inches of water. Oh my goodness. How? That was another good one too. That was like a 3+. Here he is. He just tried to get it again. He just tried to get it again. Right in here. Come on, fish. I know you're still in there. Come and get it. That was wild. He's still in there too. He tried to get it again. He just missed it for a second time. Wow, that was crazy. Okay. Oh, that was a fun bite. It was cool watching him try to come get it. It's a bummer he didn't come get it. He was way, way up in there shallow. I don't know why these fish are so shallow right now in this grass, but that's why I parallel it, because that fish, I mean, he shot out from like on the bank way up there to try to come get that jig. That was crazy. That fish was vicious. Keep fishing for a bit. Back to my story. I would basically, yeah, whenever it was warm-ish, like I would say swim jig for me, and I can talk about this too, I guess, led me to a good point. Swim jig for me is a bait I'll throw anytime the water temperature is above 60 degrees. Once that water temperature drops below 60, then I actually find that I don't have as much success with the swim jig, but I still catch fish in water willow, which is surprising. But what I'll switch to is actually either a chatterbait or a lipless crankbait. A lipless crankbait is actually the best thing I've found in this water willow when it gets kind of cold. And I've caught them all the way down to 45-degree water temperatures in this exact type of water willow, ripping a lipless crankbait out of the grass. These fish will get up here in sun in really cold temperatures, and you can catch them just fishing a trap through these stretches of water willow, same places I'm fishing the swim jig. When the water temperature is above 60, I will keep throwing this. I don't know what the water temperature is out here. I actually never checked. I'm betting it's like probably in the high 60s, 70-degree range, something like that. It hasn't been that cold recently, but it's cooled down a little bit. So I will throw that swim jig through that whole time. So that meant, like in Arkansas, I'd be able to fish a swim jig starting in sometimes late March, all the way through November at times. Oh wow, there's a bunch of fish in this. Come on. There's a bunch of shad that just kicked. He tried to get my bait. Come on. Get it, fish. One just tried to swirl on it right here. They're up in this grass. It is dirt shallow up there though. That's wild. I mean, it is inches of water up there. These fish are shallow. That's pretty crazy. Let's see if one of them wants to come eat my deal. Come on. Man, that's so weird. But because of that, I could basically just, because I can fish this jig so much of the year, it became like a staple bait for me whenever there's water willow. And there's a lot of lakes actually in Arkansas that have water willow, surprising amount. So I could use this technique in a lot of different places around the state and still catch fish. And it just made a really versatile technique for me. Now, there are times when the grass and stuff gets kind of thick down the bank. I will throw a frog. And you may be wondering when I throw a frog versus a swim jig. A frog for me is a lot better when it's post spawn, and summer time of the year, especially when that grass is really tight to the bank, almost like what we have right here. But when I feel like those fish are definitely setting up in the grass because of like current or because it's like post-spawn or fry guarding or stuff like that. I don't think these fish are actually setting up in this grass necessarily, like in just staying in one spot. I think these are just roaming fish. They're roaming down the bank. And when a lot of these fish are just roaming and I'm not gonna get that many bites in a day, that's when I go to a swim jig because I want to cover water. I can cover water so much faster with the swim jig compared to the frog. Now, like this stretch right here is a great frog stretch where you actually have the grass that's like right up to the bank. It's steeper grass. There's not that much of it. I can work that bait in place. So this is actually a great frog stretch, but I don't have a frog tied on, so we're just gonna throw a swim jig through here. But this is a stretch I would throw a frog, especially earlier in the year. But this time of year, the fall, I'm just throwing a swim jig. I just have one bait in my hand. You can see I already got 2 really good quality bites on it. So we know it's working. I think I could just keep on running this and catch them as long as we have this shade. It's not that many bites. I mean, you saw I had 2 bites and we've been going for about an hour. So that's still actually, that's pretty good. I'm very happy with that. I'm not disappointed at all actually by that number of fish I'm getting. And that's also kind of the realistic sense of fishing. A lot of times when I do my uncut videos like this or longer form, you get to see how long it actually takes me to get these fish to bite and how many bites I get versus with like a catch 15 or whatever, like, oh, I went 2 hours or I went an hour between bites or it took me 45 minutes between bites. You don't get a sense of what that feels like. It's just, oh, it's this kind of generic amount of time. And when you do this, you get a really good sense for it. And I think that is valuable. I also think there's a value in not having to watch all of this though, and just cutting out to the good parts, but it definitely makes it look a lot easier when you cut out all of the in between. Now we got the sun here, I can see right into this grass. I mean, it's all this grass I'm fishing, I mean, it's shallow. I can see the bottom. I mean, our rod hits right there. It's only that deep at the edge of this grass. So that's how we measure the grass in Arkansas. I don't have my depth finder on, I just have mapping, but we just measure it with our rod tip. But that's how deep it is right here. About 3.5, 4 foot on the outside edge, and then it's a lot shallower up in there. This stretch looks freaking good. Don't know why there wouldn't be one up here. All this looks good. I keep saying I want to stop, and then it all just looks so good. It's just like you can't. I just want one more of those bites, one more fish to come up and just smash this thing. It's hard to stop. Come on, fish. Right in here, just got, this looks so perfect. Matches the pattern really well. It's like this thicker grass. My rule number 1 is not holding up very well today though, because these fish are way up on the bank. And normally I would just say target the outside edge. That is not the play today. It's definitely fish further up in there, but I guess rules are meant to be broken a little bit. These fish are aggressive too. I mean, that last fish sharked it from 5, 6 feet away. So if I get around one, they're gonna bite. That's again, rule number 3, cover water. That's why I'm covering water, because right now these fish, they're not, the water's clean enough where they can see this thing, and it's shallow enough where they can see this thing. They're not gonna have any issue coming and getting it by any means. Now, I could be catching them on a frog here too. I mean, if you wanted to throw a frog, you could throw a frog. I just find my landing ratio is a little bit better with the swim jig. I can cover water a lot faster with the swim jig. So that's why I'm using the swim jig, again, versus the frog. For my gear, I mentioned it at the beginning, but I just use a 7-foot medium, or 7-foot heavy power, so 7.4 heavy power. The reason I'm using the 7.4, I'll kind of get into the rod and specs a little bit more in detail. I've thrown every single rod you can imagine with the swim jig, from a 7.7 all the way to a 7-foot rod, and I've actually tried braid with like a medium heavy. I've tried a bunch of different sizes of braid. I've tried throwing 25-pound fluoro. I've done a bunch of different stuff over the years. I've even tried mono, which was a terrible idea. But the reason I like the 7'4", I mean, I'm 6 foot tall, so it probably depends on the height that you are. But being, I would say if you're like 5'10" to 6'1", probably a 7'4" rod is going to feel really good because you want to keep that bait high up and keep your rod tip up. And as you can see, my rod is up in the air, and the higher that rod is up in the air, the higher that jig stays in that grass. And if you get a rod that's too short, that bait will tend to kind of sink down in the grass a little bit more, and you have to put that rod so high that it's uncomfortable to shake it. So that 7'4" gets that rod tip at a good height where it's not difficult to shake all day. You want a fast action rod because that rod needs to bounce a lot. So this is a fast action, just a jig rod. You don't really want like a whippy rod. The stouter the rod too, the easier it is to actually bounce it and work that thing. It's just, it pulls through the grass better. Oh my gosh, come on. There's shad kicking everywhere. I thought a fish was, oh my gosh. There was one in the edge of that grass right here. Just watched him eat on the edge of that grass. He ate some shad. Eat my bait, fish. Come on. There's a lot of little shad up here. In this edge of this grass, there's a lot of little shad. But that's why I go with the 7'4". I've done a 7'6" before, and the 7'6" just kind of feels like overkill to me, though I've done it and it's fine. I honestly feel like a 7'6" heavy is a little bit lighter. It has more tip to it, and it's actually harder to pull that bait through the grass versus a 7'4" heavy. So that's why I go with the 7'4". It's a good length. I'm using a 7'4" heavy now for, oh gosh. I have old Quantum rods. They're a 7'4" heavy that I used for years and years and years, and that was my go-to rod for probably 10 years doing it. And then once we started working with Denali for Fish at the Moment, they had their 7'4" worm and jig rod, and this is just, it's perfect. It's exactly the same as that Quantum rod basically that I used, or fairly close at least. And the only thing is different is that was a full grip. This is a split grip. Oh no. It was bound to happen eventually. I was gonna get hung on oh good. It's like I was bound to get hung on one of these branches eventually. I haven't had any major issues with hanging up on the branch. That's one thing about swim jigs too, is you have a thinner weed guard. So you're not gonna stay out of every piece of brush and stuff that's up there. I'm just gonna fish up this next corner. Oh gosh, okay, there we go. I was about to say, I'm gonna fish up the next corner. Not a big one, but another fish. Nice, 2 fish now. At least we know there's at least a couple of them here. It's not a big one though, it's just a little guy. But on that swim jig, oh, sorry fish. One thing about these Yamacraws is that they do tear up pretty good, which I'm not super big fan of, but if they don't tear too much, you can just rig them opposite direction. There's like, basically you can rig them both from the front and the back and they'll hold up. So they're not the most, I guess, durable baits, unfortunately, but they do the best job for what I want. So I still throw them, but nice. Okay, got 2 fish in this video. I'm just gonna keep fishing a little bit more. I'm glad I got a couple fish. I should have that one fish that missed it. I can't believe he missed that bait. I think that was a 3-pounder, plus 3+ pounder. But got 2 fish on the swim jig. Very happy with the swim jig. I didn't need to check the hook again, but it didn't seem like the hook bent out, which is kind of a key. Yeah, the hook didn't bend out. Paint's holding up. I mean, I'm not fishing against rock or anything, but sometimes paint will just chip off these jigs, even just bouncing it through grass. So the paint's good on it for being a budget jig. That's very important, that you don't just get like a super cheap paint job or whatever, or you get a super cheap hook. The hook is fine. So yeah, happy with the jig. So if you guys do need a swim jig, just pick up this $4 Weekender jig. I'll link it down in the description. I don't know where I got them off of I was ordering some like custom spoons from Nichols Lures, which also is Dirty Jigs, and it was like a yellow spoon for striper. And I saw these on the website. I think they might be on Tackle Warehouse. I'll link them down in Tackle Warehouse if they're there. But you may need to go straight to their site. I'm not sure. But I'm like 99% sure they should be on Tackle Warehouse. Now that I think about it, because everything they have is there. So anyways, good stuff. Oh no! Oh, he had it in his mouth too. It's just a little guy. Dang it. I didn't pull too fast on that either. I thought I pulled too fast on him, but he had it. It was just a little guy. Wow, okay. Well, another bite right here. This one was on the outside edge. The last couple were more towards the outside edge. That fish had it. He didn't eat it though. I don't know why. I think he was just too small. I think it was a little guy. But anyways. Oh, another bite. I'm getting a lot of bites. This is fun. This is really good. I think that was like a lot smaller than the last fish I had, to be honest. The last fish I caught, so just a little one. I'm getting more bites than I was expecting doing this though, which is good. It's a lot of fun. They catch 15 the other day on Lake Uchi in Oklahoma, and I didn't go fish the shallow grass because I thought there wasn't enough water in the grass, but there definitely is enough water here. I should have definitely just thrown a swim jig in the grass. I was trying to fish offshore. It was post front, it was a whole thing. And I was just thinking that the fish wouldn't be that aggressive, but oh, one just smashed it right there. Just reeling it in. It's weird. But I definitely should have thrown a swim jig in that challenge, so. Anyways, well, that's it, guys. I'm kind of at the end of this grass. I could probably go hunt around a little bit more, find more, but I'm going to end this video here. We've been going for over an hour, so that's a pretty good video. I'm going to go try to find some fish offshore now. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. There are so many gnats. I apologize if there were like gnats on this back camera. I don't think that I probably would just cut away, but there's so many gnats. This is unbelievable. This is kind of a thing that happens in this part of Arkansas. There we go. But anyways, that Weekender swim jig definitely passed the test for me. I'll link it down in the description. Had a lot of fun just catching them, fishing a swim jig in the grass. These gnats are getting in my nose, they're getting in my mouth. We're gonna get offshore here. Maybe we'll get away from the gnats a little bit. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. We'll see y'all next one.